Hi there, everybody. Very good to be with you tonight. Maggie, S.R., Luann Schendel, Carla Atkinson, Jeremy Sicking, more people piling in, Joan Denny, Mr. Jickens in the middle of tennis season, Karen Smith, Judith, just Judith, John Mahoney. Very good to see all of you. Thanks for being with us. Look, Rocky River, Ohio, Diana Lynch, Linda Grimm. Oh my gosh. Hi there, darling.
Oh, hello.
Oh. Well, as some of you know, I will have a book coming out in a number of months about animals in our lives and animals I've met around the world. And this includes a lot about a cat named Cat, or I call him Gato Blanco. And I was reading something today that I don't know, I missed this book. Geoffrey the Poet's Cat, by the British writer Oliver Soden'd. And it's a biography of Geoffrey, or perhaps we would pronounce that Joffrey, poet's cat in 18th century London in the theatre district, as a matter of fact. Really, Linda Grimm? Well, I don't know how that happened, John Mahoney. I mean, in our family, perhaps it should be Chateau, but it was Gato Blanco. So, in any event, but he's big enough for more than one name, right?
Think so.
Don't you think so?
I think so.
Yeah.
Plus, he's half French and half Spanish speaking at this point.
Oh, yeah, of course.
You
He
know.
would be half French and half Spanish speaking. That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
It works.
Not to mention, of course, his superb command of English and, I don't want to give anything away, Esperanto.
Right.
I said, Cat, not many people study that anymore. And he said, well, I think it could really be a contribution. Oh, sorry. Oh, I think it could really be a contribution to universal literacy. Oh, thank you, Cat. Okay. So, let me read from the life, Oliver Soden'd, Geoffrey, or Joffrey, perhaps that is, the poet's cat. He's in the theater district here near Covent Garden. His wanderings eventually took him to the end of Bow Street, and he padded his way along the taverns and coffee houses of Russell Street. Remember, this is 18th century London, and dared the frightening reek of Drury Lane and its film of coal dust in the air. Certain publicans, I guess that's what they call a bar, right? Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Certain publicans began to mark the houses by his appearances and grew quite worried on those days when he had been accidentally locked inside Nancy's room and didn't appear. I immediately thought of the Nancy and Oliver. The demeanor of the tough alley cat soon ceded to an expansive purr if a saucer of milk or a plate of scraps seemed likely to appear from any locals who stooped to pet him. He found a quiet corner on the join between Catherine and Russell Streets, where he would usually settle undisturbed each afternoon. Joffrey came to know one green-gloved hand quite well as it stooped to pet him on its regular arrival from its carriage, haloed by a frothing white cuff and hovering above a thickly stockinged leg. The owner of the gloved hand had a voice that was rich and resonant. And although Joffrey understood almost nothing of what was said to him, he felt the low timbre of the voice resonate pleasurably at the fingertips and along his whiskers. The nuzzle from the hand each afternoon became one of Joffrey's routines, and he was really rather irritated on those days when a higher, whinier voice seemed, in calling away the glove, "Mr. Garrick, sir, we must really be moving along." So Garrick, that's the theater district, right? In the West.
I think so, yeah. That's what the internet says.
Yeah. To curtail their already brief communion. On the glove's disappearance, Joffrey would settle in each afternoon, appraise with his beady, unblinking stare crowds of people he did not know to be the theater-goers, arriving in their sedan chairs and carriages and swarming into a side street to attend performances of the Theatre Royal, Drury Lane, in clouds of ruffles and frills, hoops and swords, high wigs and lemony powder. He watched the coachman mill around and spit onto the road. The bearers of the sedan chairs stretch their limbs, I beg your pardon. Big difference. And wipe their brows and scuffle among themselves like any cat. His ears would reach their way toward the distant muffle of laughter and applause, the bang of backstage scenery, and yells of the stage crew. It was common for audiences to make a single evening's entertainment by taking in an act from an opera here, an act from a play there, moving from theater to opera house and back again before going on to an afterpiece at the Lincoln's Inn Fields. Joffrey would watch the crowds move back and forth until he knew it was time to leave his own ringside seat and return to Mother Douglas's house for a few snatch moments with Nancy before the next night's clients returned. He was a fickle creature, and on other excursions he began to set up camp at the stage door of the Theatre Royal in Covent Garden, unaware or unbothered by the severe rivalry between the two playhouses. Doorkeepers in both began to boast of how well trained was their theater's cat, which they took to be a good luck charm for sales. Joffrey was happy to wander over to be the scratched or petted cat, listening with half an ear to the swaddled trumpeting of an orchestra or choir. The fingers of the doorkeeper at the Covent Garden Theatre were ridged and swollen, marbled with a rough brown growth that scratched pleasantly at Joffrey's ears. "The takings for your oratorio this evening were quite splendid, Mr. Handel," he would say, as Joffrey saw a pair of swollen legs make their unsteady way the 2 steps into the waiting carriage. "We do believe that this kitten here has a wonderful effect. We do believe that this kitten here has had a wonderful effect on the attendants. We've named him Samson in your honor." Joffrey ducked beneath a cane, had a vague impression of 2 milky eyes swiveled in his direction, vague and unseen beneath a large and trembling wig, and scampered off across the piazza. Most of his excursions were spent skimming through a world, buckles and ankles. But it took only a scrabble up a tree, his claws sharpening nicely on the rough wood of the bark, or a scramble across a roof, rusted tiles loosening between his weight, for his domain to widen, his purview stretch. Scudding clouds of white and gray wigs floated beneath him, and a flow of tricolored hats and the canvas tops of carriages pulsed through the tangled arteries of the London streets. But cats are nearsighted. Did you know that?
That explains an awful lot.
Well, it explains cats' reading glasses.
Yes.
Thank God Easy Peasy makes, well, cat size, my size, yeah. That's his.
Yeah.
But cats are nearsighted. Beyond the realm of his vision was London's usual uproar, red roofs floating beneath a crowd of flags and weather vanes spinning in the smog. The stalagmites of spires, the tangle of masts along the great brown ribbon of the Thames, which froze to a shiny bronze in winter. Looking far above all was the great dome of St. Paul's, its baritone boom ringing out beneath the silvery chiming that assaulted a certain pair of ginger ears. Hour upon hour from a choir of singing saints, St. Peter upon Cornhill, St. Mary Le Bow, St. Anne, St. Giles and Cripplegate, St. Margaret Lothbury, and the tenor of St. Sepulchre, near the Old Bailey, whose bell ringer would strike an execution knell for the prisoners in nearby Newgate, while their last hours seeped away in wide-eyed, candlelit torment, and their last minutes were paraded in front of a baying crowd which cheered at the clatter of the stool, at the creaking of the rope, at the swinging pair of dusty shoes just brushing an inquisitive ginger nose as, On one of Joffrey's walks through the city, he did stumble upon the reek of death. It was the November of 1755, by which time Joffrey, as old as the decade, had grown adept at the navigation of London streets. He was settled once again at his regular spot opposite the Drury Lane Theatre. For nearly an hour, he had been watching a steady and mysterious stream of people go inside. A babble of unknown languages shot its way across the street and into his ears, and his claws flexed with longing as he saw, being carried into the theatre, lustrous reels of brightly colored silks, handfuls of beads, headdresses, and swords, and at one astonishing moment, as the lights began to dim, and that cold, wintry afternoon, a procession of lustrous yellow globes bobbling their way into the building, held aloft on sticks as if the stars of the sky had fallen to earth and were floating along the chilly street. They were Chinese lanterns, lit from within by candles, but little did Joffrey know that the theater was hosting a spectacular ballet called La Fête Chinoise. I usually ask Caroline if I'm pronouncing
Caroline, what does that mean?
I think it means the Chinese party.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Darlene. I'm sorry to mangle it. When a dragon arrived, its garishly painted visage all but hiding the men who were carrying it along the road into the theater, he considered turning tail and fleeing, but held his ground. 30 minutes later, the cold threatened to become intolerable, and Joffrey was just about to return home when a carriage drew up. But he knew, somehow as cats can know the things that they should not, was different from the other vehicles that thundered their way in and out of his life. Crowds were gathered, shouting, cheering. The coachman seemed dressed with especial extravagance. A trumpeter heralded the opening of the door, a river of green. Or so Joffrey perceived. It suddenly splashed from the door of the carriage, which opened. Joffrey prowled closer to reveal a grand boot, a buckle of astonishing glitter, a white stockinged leg into which a garter of gold thread appeared to slice painfully. Joffrey had slunk close enough now to put a tentative paw onto the green river, to look up into a blue waistcoat of impossible luxury, and beyond it, rolls of neck. The face, all but hidden by the brocaded stomach beneath it, peered mistily down and looked at Joffrey. Joffrey looked up into the face. The face went on its way, but it smiled briefly. For a cat may look at a king. Isn't that delightful?
It really is.
That's really wonderful. Oliver Soden'd from Joffrey, the Poet's Cat, book that came out in 2020, and I don't know how we missed it.
We had a plague.
We did have a plague, right? But I mean, still, that's especially with the plague.
Yeah.
So thanks very much for being with us tonight on our open book. I hope we can ask for an encore tomorrow night, because I have some business to take care of. Prior obligation, which I will do my best. And I want to thank everyone for being with us. I attended a certain event at lunchtime today, and a lot of people come up to me and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And I keep thinking, I know why they're saying it. Look, NPR has an audience of 42 million. I suspect we will find a way to keep going on and be even better. And we take our work seriously and the blessing to do that work for you. So thanks very much for being with us. And back on Thursday, right? Yeah.
May I quote Caroline in her honor?
Yes.
In reference to what you just said?
Yeah.
I believe she would say, life finds a way.
Yes. Jeff Goldblum, what a great quote. I bet it was an athlete about his. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. So thanks very much for being with us tonight on our open book. I'll see you later. Take care. Bye-bye.